Good evening, everybody. It's your favorite aspiring revolutionary here, a wandering author, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. And today we're talking about question number 7 from St. Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica on the infinity of God. So previously we discussed the nature of divine perfection, and now we're going to discuss the nature of divine infinity. For God is everywhere, and in all things, inasmuch as he is boundless and infinite. St. Thomas tackles this question in 4 steps. 1, whether God is infinite. 2, whether anything besides him is infinite in essence. 3, whether anything could be infinite in magnitude. And 4, whether an infinite multitude can exist. So let's go ahead and get started with the first article, whether God is infinite. Aristotle said infinite things cannot be perfect because they consist of parts and matter. And as we have seen, God is perfect, so mustn't he be infinite. Furthermore, Aristotle's physics define finite and infinite as belonging to quantity, and there is no quantity in the oneness of God. Finally, that which is divided from other things, such as a stone from wood, must be finite, and since it seems that God is neither of these, shouldn't he also be finite? Well, on the contrary, Damascene said that God is infinite, eternal, and boundless. Ancient philosophers all agreed that the first principle of all being was infinite with good reason. They conceived of things as flowing forth infinitely from first principles. However, some of them made an error concerning the first principles of nature. They believed that the first principle was material, and as such presupposed a sort of material infinity. We must consider, therefore, that the thing is called infinite because it is not finite. Matter's form makes it finite, and the form is made finite by its matter. Formless matter has great potential to assume many forms, like the elements of the periodic table. Forms are common to many, but once matter takes a form, the form is determined to this one particular thing. Matter's perfection is in its form, and its form is made finite by its matter. Thus, when we apply the concept of the infinite to matter, it has the nature of imperfection, for it is, as it were, formless matter. Conversely, form is not perfected by matter, but is constrained by it. Therefore, the infinite form without matter has the nature of perfection. Now, as being is supreme formality, and the divine being is not received in anything, it is clear that God is infinite and perfect. And just so we're clear here, St. Thomas is saying that God is pure form and not necessarily matter, though he can assume the shape of matter. God is not quantitative either, because quantity is terminated by form. Further, since God's being subsists upon itself, he is distinguished from all other beings. Now, article number 2 is whether anything but God can be essentially infinite. Since everything has its power, and again, we always start these, each article starts with a series of objections first. So, since everything has its power in proportion to its essence, it may seem like more than God can be infinite. If God's essence is known to be infinite, it seems he should be able to produce an infinite effect, since an object's power is known by its effects. Anything with an infinite essence seems to have infinite power, and the created intellect has infinite essence because it can apprehend the universal. So, shouldn't there be other things besides God that are infinite, like the intellect, since the intellect can at least comprehend of the infinite? And then another objection, the final objection: finally, it appears that primary matter is infinite, and it was already shown to be something other than God. Since primary matter is one of the first principle of all, one of the first principles of all being. On the contrary, though, in the 3rd book of Aristotle's Physics, it says the infinite cannot have a beginning, but everything is from God as the first principle. God is the only true first principle. He is the first principle of all being. So nothing besides him can be infinite, since everything flows from him. St. Thomas says that outside God, things can only be relatively infinite, not absolutely. When you apply the concept of infinite to matter, we can see that all things possess a form, and is thus determined by form. So God is the formless former. He is pure form without matter, whereas matter is constrained by form. Now, even though matter may exist under some substantial form, it still has potential in regards to accidental forms. So the substance of a man is like our body, everything that is essential for us to be, and then the accidental things are the things that can change, like the length of my facial hair or the color of my eyes. So that would not change my substantial form, the essence of me being a man. So although it is absolutely infinite, it is relatively infinite. Although it is absolutely finite, it is relatively infinite. We can think of this like a tree, which may have a finite form, yet it can still grow into an infinite number of new forms. So, as the tree grows, it can take on new shapes, although the tree as it is at the moment is bounded by its form. So turn our attention to the infinite as regards form, and things differ. The forms that are found in matter and finite are finite and in no way infinite. Some think angels are an exception to this case, having self-subsisting forms that are not received into matter. These would be relatively infinite. Yet these created forms have a subsisting being. They are not their own being, so their being is received and determinate in nature, so they are finite. God is what gives them their form. It is against the nature of a made thing for its essence to be its existence. Therefore, a made thing's nature is not absolutely infinite. God, with infinite power, cannot make a thing to be made, and thus cannot make anything absolutely infinite. I guess that's one of his limitations. The intellect, like angelic substance, is a form not in matter, or the soul joined to the body, and as such may extend itself to infinite things. And then, Article 3. Whether an actually infinite magnitude can exist. So, being infinite is something that belongs to God alone. But can an infinite magnitude exist? And again, we start with objections. It may appear that infinite magnitudes exist because there are no errors in math, and in mathematics we speak of infinity. In addition, what is not contrary to a thing's nature, can agree with it, and both the finite and infinite are properties of quantity. Magnitude seems to be the infinitely divisible. And since addition is opposed to division, it seems that we should be able to add up to infinity. Movement and time also have quantity and continuity derived from magnitude. However, it is not contrary to their nature to be infinite, since every determinant indivisible in time and circular movement is both a beginning and an end. On the contrary, though, every body with a surface is finite, and all bodies have a surface, thus all are finite. St. Thomas elaborates that it is much different to be infinite in essence rather than magnitude. Fire or air seem like they could be infinite in magnitude, yet not in essence, because their essence would be terminated by their form and confined by matter. Now, from this perspective, we can see there are two ways to consider something, mathematically or naturally. Mathematical consideration only regards its quantity, and natural consideration regards matter and form. So, another way to think of that would be by saying that math only really thinks of the idea, whereas the natural consideration thinks of things as they are. A natural body cannot actually be infinite, since they have a determined substantial form. Quantity is an accidental quality, and accidents follow from a body's substantial form. Therefore, it is impossible for natural bodies to be infinite. This is also true for movement, as all natural bodies have a natural movement. An infinite body could not have any natural movement, says Aquinas, because nothing moves naturally by a direct movement unless it is out of its place. And this could not happen to an infinite body, for it would occupy every place. This is also true regarding circular motion, because it would require that it move from one place to another, and this could not happen as regards an infinite circular body. These rules also apply to mathematical bodies, because if a math body was in an actual existence, it would have a form, because what is actual always has a form, so mathematical concepts are purely conceptual. Hence, since the form of quantity as such is figure, such a body must have some figure, and would so be finite. And the moment these mathematical concepts become actual concepts, they are thus made limited. And then article number 4 of the 7th question, whether an infinite multitude can exist. So if one infinite magnitude can't exist, could you multiply something into infinity? So there are several objections to this. Potentials can be made actual, and since one can multiply numbers into infinity, it seems that an infinite multitude might be possible. Since the species of figures is infinite, and it is possible for any member of a species to be made actual, it seems that an infinite number of actual figures could be possible. Next, if things are not in opposition, they do not get in the way of one another. So if a multitude of things exists, others may also exist that are not opposed to them. Thus, it is not impossible or it may not appear impossible for an actual infinite number of things to be possible, or so it seems. On the contrary, though, in the book of wisdom it is written, in chapter 11, verse 21, "Thou hast ordered all things in measure and number and weight." St. Thomas says 2 strains of opinion exist on this topic, and that Avicenna believed an actual infinite multitude cannot exist absolutely, but that an accidentally infinite multitude was not impossible. Absolutely infinite multitudes cannot exist because they would be dependent on infinity for existence, and that would entail an infinite medium, which is impossible to pass through. Multitudes could be said to be accidentally infinite when its existence is not necessary, but accidental. For example, let's take the example of a blacksmith. His work would require an absolute multitude, ideas and tools. Now, if the work were multiplied to infinity, such that it were never completed, it would never be finished. The number of hammers he used would be an accidental infinity. It would not matter how many were used if he had infinite work, yet this is impossible. Every kind of multitude belongs to a species of multitude. And, quote, "the species of multitude are to be reckoned by the species of numbers," end quote. However, no species of number is infinite, because every number is multitude of measured by 1. Therefore, it is impossible for there to be either an accidentally or absolutely infinite multitude. Likewise, multitude in nature is created, and everything created is comprehended under some clear intention of the Creator, for no agent acts aimlessly, end quote. So, in conclusion, the only infinite thing in reality is the Lord. There are no infinite multitudes or infinite magnitudes. Infinity belongs to God alone. Although there are you can think of infinity in the world of concepts. Anyways, that wraps up our discussion on question number 7 on the infinity of God. So my question, as always, remains the same. What are y'all doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your local community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part, and you can count on me to do mine daily. Till next time, God bless.